Trump speaks about Jerusalem, and this could change the prophecy. What if I told you that a single phrase spoken in 2017 might have accelerated the prophetic clock of the end times? What if what seemed like just another political decision was actually a key piece linking ancient prophecies, unlikely alliances, and a scenario that is already unfolding before our eyes? The question is, why is almost no one talking about this? Today, we're going to delve into Trump's announcement about Jerusalem, the global reactions, and how all of this may be directly connected to events described thousands of years ago. But be warned, the most surprising detail of this story isn't what was said in public, but rather what no one dares to mention. And I will reveal it to you before the end of this video. Before we continue, let me tell you, here we uncover connections that almost no one shows, bringing truths that could change your perspective on what's happening now. If you want to follow every piece of this puzzle, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss anything. In December 2017, Donald Trump stepped up to the White House podium and announced to the world, Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Simple? Not at all. That statement shook history, politics, and Christianity itself. While many saw it as just a political move, others recognized that what was at stake was something much larger, deeply rooted in ancient prophecies. As Zechariah 12:3 states, Jerusalem would become a heavy stone for all nations. Suddenly, this city, which many can't even locate on a map, was at the center of the world. The scene felt political, but the atmosphere was spiritual. Across various churches around the globe, verses began to be read with renewed intensity. Pastors spoke of prayer, fasting, and repentance, believing we were witnessing a prophetic milestone. While international leaders reacted with outrage, some saw it as a divine connection. And here's a question. Did you grasp the weight of that decision, or did you just see another headline in the news? Share your thoughts in the comments, as this is a reflection that can change perspectives. At that moment, many recalled that 70 years had passed since Israel was recognized as a nation. 70, a number rich with biblical significance. Jeremiah 29 speaks of cycles and restoration. And isn't it curious that during this very period, Jerusalem returned to the spotlight? It's as if God was quietly moving the pieces on the board. And here we circle back to what Jesus said in Matthew 24:32, "Learn the parable of the fig tree." Are we seeing the signs? But the reaction was immediate. The UN, Arab leaders, European diplomats, all condemned the decision. It's astonishing how a phrase uttered into a microphone can spark a global firestorm, and that's where Zechariah's prophecy gains momentum. Jerusalem would literally become a heavy stone for all. Here's an interesting point. Have you noticed that the decisions that impact us spiritually often create the most discomfort? This rings true in personal life as well, whether in careers, investments, or personal development. What is decisive is almost always the most uncomfortable. Meanwhile, in the streets of Jerusalem, there was tension, but also hope. Many wondered, is this the preparation for something greater, perhaps the rebuilding of the temple? Such a seemingly isolated political decision could act as a trigger, setting off a chain of events. Just like in a professional career or an entrepreneurial project, a well-calculated move today can create an impact that we won't see until years later. God operates on the same principle. Seeds sown in the present are harvested in the right time. And here's the most intriguing part. Going back to the beginning of this conversation, many didn't realize that this was not just a phrase. It was the first step of something that is far from finished. Jerusalem is not just geography, it's the stage for the greatest story of all time. Sooner or later, what began at that podium will make headlines worldwide again. Perhaps you're wondering, but what exactly will this trigger? Hold on to that question. It will make much more sense in the upcoming topics. After Trump's announcement, the echo across nations was almost immediate. The UN, as the global stage, became the living symbol of Zechariah 12:3. There were 128 votes against the decision and only 9 in favor. This isn't just diplomacy, it's the literal fulfillment of what has been written for millennia. It's as if God was saying to the world, you are all part of my narrative, whether you realize it or not. This should make us reflect. How often do we resist decisions that come from God? While politicians were giving speeches, the atmosphere in many churches was different. Pastors opened the scriptures. Prophets reminded everyone of Joel 3:2. I will gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. What seemed like a diplomatic resolution became fuel for prayer and fasting. It's curious how God uses international politics to move the spiritual realm. Perhaps in your life it's similar. A problem at work, a shift in your career, or even in your investments could be the trigger for something much greater in your personal development. In the Arab streets, there were fiery protests. Leaders called for days of rage, flags were burned, and impassioned speeches against Jerusalem echoed worldwide. But did they realize that by acting this way, they were aligning themselves with the very words of prophecy? Here's a thought. What if the resistances we face today, in our families, businesses, or even in our pursuit of extra income or passive income, are not just obstacles, but confirmations that we are on the right path? European allies also reacted not with violence, but with distance. Those nations that presented themselves as partners of Israel began to retreat. This is emblematic. When pressure mounts, superficial alliances dissolve. This reminds us of Proverbs 17:17. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. It applies to nations, to businesses, and to relationships. Who stands by your side when the pressure rises? And once again, we return to the image of Jerusalem as a heavy stone. It's remarkable how everything converges to what was written. Just as in a professional life, where certain projects become the center of everything, even if small, Jerusalem is that focal point, drawing gazes and forces from all directions. And perhaps spiritually, your life has its own Jerusalem, something that seems small but is the center of your calling. But remember what we discussed at the start. What began at the White House podium is far from over. On the contrary, what we are witnessing is just the alignment of the pieces. The UN, allies, enemies, all are positioning themselves. And this, my friend, brings us directly to the next point, the so-called peace and security that, according to the Bible, is not what it seems. The Abraham Accords, signed in 2020, surprised the world. Who would have imagined that after so much tension caused by the recognition of Jerusalem, historic peace treaties would emerge? Israel and the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, Morocco, nations that had seen Israel as an enemy for decades, were now extending their hands. This appears to contradict Zechariah 12:3, but it doesn't. It's precisely as 1 Thessalonians 5:3 warns us. When they say peace and security, then sudden destruction will come upon them. Have you noticed how often in Christianity the danger lurks in moments of calm? The most curious aspect is the name of these treaties, Abraham, the same patriarch who received the promise of the land from God. Peace signed in Abraham's name, yet established in a scenario of deep spiritual tensions. Here's something interesting. Even in the world of business and entrepreneurship, we see this. Contracts that seem advantageous but hide dangerous clauses. In the prophetic scenario, it's no different. The peace that appears solid is, in reality, temporary and strategic. And did you notice something else? These agreements didn't just bring diplomatic peace, they also brought economic prosperity. Trade between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, for instance, skyrocketed from zero to billions in just a few years. This reminds us of those moments when our investments, careers, and ways of making money seem to take off. But the Bible reminds us, not all prosperity means stability. Sometimes it's precisely that abundance that lays the groundwork for the toughest test ahead. The Abraham Accords also have a detail that few have noticed. They united Israel with its neighbors, but did not include its greatest enemies. Iran, Turkey, and other countries were left out. This is significant because Ezekiel 38 describes a coalition opposed to Israel that does not fit within the logic of these treaties. It's as if we are witnessing the stage being set. In the business world, when we see an alliance excluding a competitor, we know that a larger conflict is approaching. But here's what intrigues me even more. Peace and prosperity create an atmosphere of confidence. Israel, which has always been on alert, now enjoys a rare moment of security. And Ezekiel 38:11 speaks exactly of this. I will go against the land of unwalled villages, against those who dwell securely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates. It's a scene of tranquility that, paradoxically, attracts the greatest threat. It's like when mental health is stable, but we let our guard down and neglect prayer and fasting. And once again, we return to what we started to see in the first topic. What seems like a victory may actually be the beginning of an unexpected turn. The Abraham Accords are not the end of a cycle, but the beginning of an even more intense chapter. And it's precisely this calm that allows us to see what lies ahead, the formation of alliances that seek not peace, but conflict. With the Abraham Accords, Israel experienced something rare: simultaneous prosperity and security. For decades, the country had been in a constant state of alert, but now trade, tourism, and investments are growing at an impressive rate. It's exactly as Ezekiel 38:11 describes: a people dwelling securely, without walls, without gates, trusting in peace. It's almost like when someone achieves stability in their professional career and begins to invest with more confidence. But this apparent security may hide the greatest test ahead. This environment resembles a living parable about vigilance. It's as if Israel were an entrepreneur who, after years of crises, finally sees their business thriving and then slows down, believing nothing threatens them anymore. However, the scriptures show us that it's precisely in that calm that enemies prepare. It's at this moment that discipline, whether spiritual like prayer and fasting, or practical like financial management, needs to intensify. The current peace does not mean the absence of threats. On the contrary, it means that enemies are watching. In the biblical scenario, Russia, Iran, and Turkey are already beginning to strengthen alliances, and this fits perfectly within the prophetic framework of Ezekiel 38. It's like when someone invests in passive income and thinks they are protected, but fails to notice that the market is changing silently. The danger grows precisely in the shadow of stability. At this moment, Israel resembles someone who has finally achieved quality sleep after years of insomnia. There is finally rest. But just like in mental health, sleeping does not mean being immune to problems. The question isn't whether a problem will come, but when and how. And the Bible assures us there will come a time when this rest will be abruptly interrupted. This is a call not just for Israel, but for every Christian to be prepared in season and out of season. Interestingly, prosperity itself becomes an attraction for invasion. a prosperous country, open, with trade routes, international alliances, and fewer rigid defenses, is seen as a target by enemy coalitions. Spiritual life isn't much different. When a Christian thrives, whether in faith, career, investments, or personal development, they also become a target. The difference is that in spiritual warfare, our defense isn't in walls, but in our steadfastness in Jesus, the Holy Spirit, and constant prayer. And we return to what we've seen since the first point. What began with a political decision in Jerusalem is building a scenario that seemed unlikely. Peace, prosperity, and security have become the perfect trigger for the fulfillment of ancient prophecies. And this calm serves as the ideal backdrop for the next chapter, the formation of a military alliance that will not bring peace, but open conflict. The alliance described in Ezekiel 38 is beginning to take shape before our eyes. Russia, Iran, and Turkey, nations that once had divergent interests, are now uniting around common goals. Before 2017, this union seemed improbable. But following the recognition of Jerusalem, heated speeches and strategic interests began to align them. It's as if every piece is being moved by an invisible hand. And here we are, reminded of Proverbs 21:1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, like the rivers of water. He turns it wherever he wishes. Iran, the ancient Persia mentioned directly in Ezekiel 38, has been positioning itself strongly. Its official rhetoric against Israel echoes the ancient hostility that was already prophesied. Russia, identified as Gog of the land of Magog, is strengthening military and energy agreements with Tehran. And Turkey, represented as Togarma, is moving from being a NATO ally to a strategic partner of Moscow and Tehran. It's like when, in entrepreneurship or investments, former rivals unite against a common goal, typically to take down the leader who is in an advantageous position. What's even more intriguing is that this union is not just political, but also economic and military. Russia and Iran have common energy interests. Turkey offers strategic positioning. Thus, they form a sort of northern bloc, just as the prophecy describes. This scenario is almost like a chess move. The board is set, but the final attack has yet to be made. And have you noticed how God often warns us before the attack happens? He gives us signs to strengthen our prayer, fasting, personal and spiritual development. It's also interesting to note how each nation involved has rhetoric that seems to fulfill Ezekiel 38:10. In that day, thoughts will arise in your heart, and you will make an evil plan. These evil plans are in part justified by Israel's prosperity. It's like someone successful in their professional career or business who unwittingly stirs up envy and opposition. And just as in the investment world, we need to be aware of risks. Spiritually, we also need to stay vigilant. Turkey, once seen as a mediator between East and West, is now increasingly aligning itself with Moscow and Tehran. This geopolitical shift is exactly what makes the prophecy so alive and relevant. It's like when in life, someone who seemed like an ally starts to silently change their stance. In Christianity, we learn to discern these signs through the action of the Holy Spirit, which guides us to keep our trust in God rather than in human alliances. And returning to the initial point, this alliance did not arise by chance. It was accelerated by a political decision that seemed isolated, the recognition of Jerusalem. As we've seen from the first point, there's a continuous line connecting all these events, and this line leads us to the next inevitable step, the direct confrontation and the manner in which God promises to intervene supernaturally. What Ezekiel 38 and 39 describe is not just another war, but an unprecedented divine intervention. When this coalition moves against Israel, it won't be military strength that decides the outcome. God himself declares that he will intervene. He speaks of earthquakes, sulfur, fire, and large hailstones. It's a scenario that defies any military or technological explanation. Imagine powerful armies, armed to the teeth, being defeated not by tanks, but by the direct hand of the Creator. And here's a detail that deeply stirs the heart. Only 1/6 of that army will survive, Ezekiel 39:2. This isn't just a statistic, it's an act that reveals to the world that Israel's protection does not come from alliances or treaties, but from God. It's like when in our lives we realize that it wasn't our strategy, our investment, or our productivity that saved us from a problem. It was pure divine intervention. How many times have you experienced something like that? The biblical text also shows us that this intervention will be so significant that the nations will know that the Lord is God. This changes everything. Imagine world leaders, accustomed to controlling markets, agreements, and armies, realizing that true power does not lie in Moscow, Tehran, or Washington, but on the throne of God. It's a point that also applies to everyday Christianity. In our professional careers, businesses, and mental health, there is a limit to human strength. What goes beyond that is divine action. The moment is so monumental that Ezekiel 39 describes how it will take 7 months just to bury the dead and purify the land. This reminds us that the consequences of spiritual or political decisions do not disappear quickly. It's like when we make financial or personal mistakes. Recovery takes time. But it's also a reminder that God cleanses and restores, even though the process requires patience and obedience. And here, it's worth revisiting something we've seen since the beginning. It all started with a decision that seemed small, an announcement at the White House. This announcement led to treaties. The treaties created security. The security attracted an enemy coalition. And ultimately, this coalition will bring about divine intervention. It's a perfect cycle that teaches us how history is directed by the Creator. It's the kind of lesson that applies to everything, from managing our time to our investments and ways of making money online. Everything has cause and effect. But this supernatural victory is not the final point. In fact, it opens the door to an even greater climax. Because after the intervention, the stage is set for the next prophetic step, the visible return of Jesus to the Mount of Olives, a moment that will affect heaven, earth, and every human being. Zechariah 14:4 provides such a specific scene that it feels almost cinematic. In that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall be split in two. Jesus will return to the very place from which he ascended in Acts 1:11. This is not a spiritual metaphor. It's a literal, physical, and visible event. The mountain will split open, and this rift will mark the final deliverance of Jerusalem. It's the moment when heaven invades earth. This return will not be silent. Just as the disciples saw him ascend, everyone will see him descend. It's the fulfillment of Revelation 1:7. Behold, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him. Imagine every eye of world leaders, armies, those who mocked and those who believed. This transcends any political conference or market news. It will be the event that redefines everything. In professional careers, investments, in any area of life, nothing will carry the same weight as that day. And there's a fascinating detail. The Mount of Olives sits on a real geological fault. Scientists have already warned that an earthquake could occur there at any moment. They don't realize it, but they are confirming the prophecy. It's like when financial experts talk about cyclical crises without knowing they are affirming biblical principles about times of scarcity and abundance. This shows how the natural and spiritual walk together, even if not everyone perceives it. At this moment, nations will be gathered against Jerusalem. Armies will be ready for the final attack. It will be the peak of human arrogance and spiritual rebellion. But it's exactly at this instant that Jesus intervenes. He does not come as a lamb, but as a king. And this reminds us to maintain prayer, fasting, and vigilance, because just as Jerusalem will be surrounded, our lives may also face moments when everything seems lost. And that's when divine intervention happens. And here, do you remember what we talked about at the beginning? Everything began with an announcement that seemed distant from our reality. But look where we've arrived. That microphone at the White House was the first step toward this cosmic moment. This is the kind of spiritual loop the Bible shows us. Seemingly small decisions leading to history-changing events. And likewise, your daily choices, in faith, in business, in family, may be opening paths you cannot yet see. And we are still not at the end, because Jesus' descent on the Mount of Olives sets the stage for the final battle. And this battle, described as Armageddon, will not be won with tanks or planes, but with the word that comes from his mouth. And this is where the story reaches its absolute climax. Revelation 19 paints the final scene powerfully. All nations gathered in the valley of Megiddo, ready to destroy Jerusalem. The scene is one of total war, which in human terms would mean certain defeat for Israel. But the heavens open, and Jesus appears riding a white horse, with the heavenly armies by his side. He does not wield human weapons. His weapon is the very word, and out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should strike the nations. Revelation 19:15. It's the definitive victory. The name Armageddon is neither myth nor metaphor. It's a real place in Israel. Historically, it has been the site of decisive battles, but none will compare to this one. It's as if the entire biblical narrative and all historical events have converged for this moment. And this teaches us that both in Christianity and in entrepreneurship and investments, there is a point of convergence. Everything you have sown, built, and invested will be tested on a final day. Christ's victory in this confrontation is neither slow nor negotiated. With a single word, he dissolves the enemy forces. This is significant because it reminds us that Jesus' authority does not depend on negotiation. And bringing it into our practical lives, how often do we forget that in prayer we have access to that same authority? Whether to deal with anxiety, mental health, financial decisions, or personal development, the word remains the key. The kings of the earth, generals, and even the Antichrist will be present, but they will discover the hard way that all human power is limited. This serves as a warning for us too. No matter how successful we are in our careers, how solid our investments are, and how stable we feel, if all of that is disconnected from God, it won't stand the test of the day. Armageddon is the great reminder that all false securities crumble before divine sovereignty. And once again, if we look back, we will see that this battle has roots in that announcement from 2017. It's a perfect cycle. What seemed like just a political decision became a prophetic catalyst. This should make us think, what seemingly small decisions are we making today that could have a massive impact in the future? Both in faith and in practical life, sowing is real. And here we reach the end of this chapter, but not of the storyline, because after the victory, the kingdom of Christ on earth begins. Armageddon is the closing of one era and the beginning of another. And we who have followed this path since Jerusalem are invited to be ready, spiritually, emotionally, and even in how we manage our lives, for the new that is coming. Today we saw how an announcement made in 2017 was not just a political act, but possibly a turning point in prophetic history, connecting ancient scriptures, unexpected alliances, and events that continue to unfold before us. And as promised at the start, you now know that hidden detail that few discuss. but which completely alters how we understand the current scenario. If this content resonated with you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. This helps keep this community alive as we seek to understand, in a deep and clear way, the signs of our time. Now, I want to extend a special invitation to you. Leave in the comments the secret word to show that you watched until the end. Choose one: Jerusalem, prophecy, or Mount of Olives. It will be amazing to see who really stayed until the end. And stay tuned. The next video will explore an even more impressive connection, something that links current events to a prophecy that seemed forgotten but may be about to be fulfilled. Click on the end screen and keep watching so you don't miss the continuation of this story that is far from over.